Hello, fellow human light beings. This is Mahadeva the Thunder Wizard, and this is the 12 steps to transcend to 5D. And today we're going to be talking about step 9. We sought to take direct actions to experience everything we desired without limiting the freedom of others to do the same. Hello and welcome back to the channel. So this is the 12 steps to 5D. And these are not videos just to watch. These are videos that you do. So you have to do them in order and you have to actually do them. So I recommend that you go to the playlist on the channel, the 12 steps to 5D, and you start with step 1. Do not watch this video if you have not done steps 1 through 8. Okay? All right, so go back and start with step 1 if you haven't looked at these yet. If you're still watching, my assumption is that you have done, not just watched, but you've done the steps 1 through 8, and now you're ready for step 9. So steps 8 and 9 go together, but let's go ahead and walk through where we've come from to get to this place. So the 12 steps to 5D, number 1, we admitted we were powerless over our 3D virtual reality experience of life and had become trapped in the 3D illusion. Step 2, came to believe that personal interaction with the quantum field energy could restore us to our original awareness of self and giving us the power to create our perfect reality. Step 3, we turned our will and our lives over to a higher dimensional force of our choosing. Step 4, made a list of all of our resentments, regrets, and disappointments we had in our 3D experience so far. Step 5, admitted to ourselves, our sponsor, and to a higher dimensional consciousness the fear-based survival responses that had created our ongoing 3D limitations. Step 6, became ready to have all of these ineffective, unconscious 3D survival responses removed by a higher dimensional force. Step 7, directly asked the quantum field to remove our self-devaluing programmed responses to life. Step 8, made a list of all the ways in which we had minimized our happiness and the happiness of others. And step 9, we sought to take direct actions to experience everything we desired without limiting the freedom of others to do the same. So, to understand this step, we need to understand the original intent of the 12 steps and how steps 8 and steps 9 were, step 8 and step 9 were used in the original 12-step programs. So step 8 says, made a list of all the people we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. Step 9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible except when to do so would injure them or others. Now, that's basically saying, getting honest with how you've, if we're talking about the original 12 steps, we're talking about alcoholics and then drug addicts. And so these steps were about, people who had stolen money or cheated on their friends, with their friends' wives, or, crashed a car, stole a car. They've done really horrible things in their addiction. And so they have to become honest with that because they don't want to live with that any longer. And then in step 9, they have to go and make that right. So that means if they're able to do so without causing harm to other people. So in other words, you cheat on your wife, she doesn't know about it. It's destructive to then sit her down a year later and say, guess what? A year ago I cheated on you with some woman you don't know. That's destructive. So the amends that you make is that you love your wife even more. You make sure that you're there for her. You never engage in any of that kind of behavior again. So the main thing of step 9 is being aware of how your actions affect others. Now, this is the 12 steps to 5D. So if that applies to you, I mean, if that applies to you, you should be working another 12-step program as well. You should be working whatever 12-step program you qualify for. But when it comes to the average person who's addicted to the third dimension, they may not have stolen cars, stolen money, cheated on people, destroyed. They may not have done that. But what you have done in your addiction to the third dimension, when you have diminished your own happiness, when you have not sacrificed everything to fulfill your deepest soul desires, you have not only harmed yourself, you have added to the quantum field of dis-ease, imbalance. When people oftentimes, there will be intervention sessions, and the counselor and a bunch of family members will sit somebody down. They'll say, we're going to have a party, and they invite the alcoholic or the drug addict to the party, and then they show up, and it's just family and friends and a interventionist, and they say, we called you here because we care about you. Your behavior is really destructive, and you're really harming us with what you're doing. And the addict will almost always say something to the effect of, screw you, I'm not hurting anybody, I'm just doing this to myself, it has nothing to do with you. And the whole point of intervention is to say, no, you're wrong. You're damaging your wife, you're damaging your kids, you're damaging your family, you are damaging other people with this behavior. And we care about you. We not only care about you, we care about ourselves. And so when we, in the third dimension, remember in the third dimension, the third dimensional reality is pushing very hard to get you to feel isolated, separate, alone, unsafe, vulnerable. And so in order to feel safe, what people do is they seek to have the world accept them. So as I've said in my book, The Shamanic Secret Commandment to a Perfect Life, which I recommend that you read, you can get it at michaelwilliamdenny.com. You should go read that if you haven't already done so. There's only two main reasons that we're here. And your soul has come here because there's something beautiful and fun that your soul wants to experience. Remember, your soul is God. God is not outside of you. Your soul is the creator of this universe. So the creator of this universe has come into this virtual reality video game in order to have fun. And when you come here, your soul wants to do that. Now, you have a three-dimensional mind which is governed by karma, past life issues that you haven't overcome, as well as the issues that you've picked up in childhood, survival mechanisms. So the survival mechanism of the third dimension is to get, first and foremost, your parents to love you, and then to get the world, because we primates are social creatures. And if we aren't part of the tribe, especially go back in time, you die, you don't survive. So since the third dimension is very challenging that way, our 3D physical brain and body wants to find ways to get other people to accept us and love us. In modern times, way back in caveman times, it was, the tribe wants to go and attack the other tribe. Well, I better go with them or they're going to attack me. So I'm going to go fight those other people. Or, we go together and we go and we get the food together, we travel together. Little babies, if they weren't 100% healthy, they would just leave them on a rock and, because they couldn't take care of them. And if somebody wasn't able to walk and take care of themselves, they slowed everybody down. You could get nailed by all kinds of things. So we're ingrained with this desire to get the approval of the narrative. In modern times, it means being approved of. I mean, we just went through a scenario, as you know, the past few years, where if you didn't do certain things, you wouldn't be able to travel, you wouldn't be able to, see your folks, you wouldn't be able to have a job, you wouldn't be able to get on a bus. So that's the modern version of that, is seeking the approval of fellow humans, whether that be through being a good person, being spiritual, being rich, being famous, being influential. All of those come back to wanting to be approved of by this physical 3D world. Now your soul is going to rebel against that. Your soul doesn't care about that. Your soul only cares about living connected to the flow of spiritual truth and energy. And so that's the true narrative that we want to have. So there's a battle within us that fights, and this is the spiritual path. This is the path, the goal of all spirituality, of all psychotherapy, and of course the goal of all 12-step work, is to live the truth of the soul. Now what ends up happening is when you live the truth of the soul, you now have access, you're plugged into infinite energy, which will give you health, it'll give you prosperity, because the universe will continue to give you all of the resources you need in order to function, which includes right now money. It will give you happiness, it will give you true friendship, true joy, true camaraderie, all of that. But you have to choose. You have to pick one or the other. And most people try to do something in the middle, which is really just picking, what I call living in compromise land, which is, still trying to get love and approval from the world. So the point of step 9 is we want to minimize the damage. In fact, we want to erase, if possible, the damage that we cause to all people. So, for instance, if you decide to follow your soul, and let's say your family or your friends, they're following the path of the narrative. They're operating from fear. They don't believe that the universe loves them. They've been trying to teach you your whole life that that's the way it is. And people who are, it says misery loves company. So people surround themselves with people who have the same mindset, because it helps you stay solidified in what you think is going to keep you in survival. This is why people go on to internet chat forums and constantly want to talk about all of the actual crazy, weird nonsense that's going on in the world. This is why flat earthers, like to get together, because, if they spend enough time with people who actually know what science is, they're going to have to let go of that fear-based belief of the earth being flat. So the point I'm trying to make is that when you follow your soul and you do so with the consciousness of, if I fulfill my desires, I actually help all other people. I connect vibrationally to the quantum field, the collective unconscious, the actual spirit energy of all living things. if those people are going down the path of fear, limitation, self-devaluation, in the unconscious mistaken desire to be loved and approved of, they're not going to like that. They're going to think that you are harming them. As I've said in many of my recent videos, things are starting to calm down. We'll see what happens. But, for months now, there have been people who I've known and been close to who have been ruthlessly attacking me in ways I couldn't even begin to imagine. And part of the reason is because I represent going after your soul, not trying to be loved and accepted. And of course, that is damaging to their frequency of how they see the world, because if they allow my energetic vibrational influence on them, they will have to let go of trying to kiss the world's ass to get loved and approved of. And that's very threatening. It feels like it will kill them. So their experience is, I'm trying to kill them. I'm trying to destroy them. And all I'm doing is I'm just representing the true path of the human experience, which is to follow your soul and nothing else, and give yourself the greatest happiness. And bear in mind, when I say follow the soul, I mean make yourself crazy, blissfully happy with everything you truly want. If people have been programmed to devalue themselves in the hope of being accepted and approved of, this is virtue signaling in religion. People who live like that, when they come across somebody like me and you, if you're doing this, they're going to feel intimidated. They're going to be frightened. They're going to feel that you're a bad influence. They're going to feel like you are dangerous to their survival. So the point I'm trying to make again is that when we look at what the step says, we sought to take direct actions to experience everything we desired without limiting the freedom of others to do the same. It means that we start to understand that selfish desires, truly selfish, destructive desires, are harmful to others. So let's say you're in love with somebody. You meet somebody and you fall in love with them. And they turn out to be not interested in you for whatever reason. Maybe they're not at their level, your level, they're not ready for you, maybe you picked the wrong person, but for whatever the reason, they're not interested. Now, you know that in order to fulfill your deepest soul desire, you must give yourself everything you truly want. Now, the question is, you feel as though you truly want the love of this person, but this person is rejecting you. So it doesn't serve you or them to try and manipulate them, try and convince them, coerce them, control them. If you throw your value away just to meet their selfish, destructive, codependent desires. You're with somebody who likes to, drink a lot, and they say, I don't want to be with you. You don't like to party as much as I do. So you don't want to party. You want to have your body be strong and powerful. So what do? You start going to parties with them and doing all kinds of things and lowering your standards for your own health in the hopes of getting that person to love you. Well, that's not only damaging to you. Number one, you're not giving yourself what you truly want. It's physically bad for you, but it's also damaging to the other person. Even if they say, yeah, good, thank you, you're doing what I want. This is what I want. I want you to be arm candy with me in these parties, and I want you to get drunk with me and do all kinds of crazy stuff. And that's what I want. And if you don't want that, then you don't love me and we don't belong together. And even though that's what they would say, at least in the short term, if you did what they wanted. You're damaging them. You're harming them because you're trying to take away their freedom. How? By manipulating, by trying to manipulate them into loving you. That's a way of controlling. So you deserve complete freedom to do whatever you want without anybody telling you otherwise. And as long as you're following your soul, it is impossible, literally impossible, for you to harm other people. You can't harm another person, their essence, their soul, if you're truly following your soul desire. If you're following your soul desire, you will not have any desire whatsoever to limit their freedom or limit their happiness. And nothing you do will limit their freedom or limit their happiness. You know, we go back to that same example and you say to the person, listen, I love my body. I don't feel good when I do this. I love you, but this is harmful to my body and I'm not going to do it. And so I can't be with you because it's not healthy for me, but it's also not healthy for you. I'm co-signing you doing something that I believe is damaging to you. You have to figure that out for yourself, but I can't participate in something I know is damaging to you. As much as I'm going to miss you, as much as I love you, I want you in my life more than anything else, but more than that, I want your happiness, your freedom. I want my freedom and my happiness. So I'm going to go and live my non-partying lifestyle because that's what my soul wants. You're free to come and join me whenever you want if that's what you decide you want to do. So I'm not limiting you. I'm not stopping you. I'm not forcing you to be with me. I'm not demanding that you be with me. You don't want to be with me. You want to go party with your friends instead of be with me. Then I want you to go after what you want. I'm not limiting you. So that's just one example, but it's important that we become conscious of that. You know, people have asked me questions, you know, they're ridiculous questions, but it comes back to this misunderstanding between not understanding what is good for us is also good for others, and what is bad for us is bad for others, and vice versa. And people will have asked me things like, well, what if my soul desire is to be abusive and damaging to other people? You know, and they've used examples I'm not going to repeat because they're, you know, really offensive. But my response is that can't possibly be your soul desire. That's coming from your fear. So in other words, here's another example I can speak of. What if somebody said, well, what if my soul desire is to become a drug addict? Well, that can't possibly be your soul desire because you're damaging your physical body and it damages other people. So a soul desire will always be something that is beneficial to you, will make you healthier, happier, and more prosperous. And if it goes against the lifestyle or desires of others who are doing damage to themselves under the mistaken belief that they're fulfilling their desires, you're actually helping them, even though they're going to be angry with you, even though they'll reject you, even though they'll try and manipulate you, stop you, control you, and you might feel like you need to do what they want in order to be accepted and be a good person. You know, my father passed away 25 years ago, long time ago. And he was an alcoholic. And he basically drank himself to death. He destroyed his body through alcoholism. And I decided to move away from that kind of lifestyle. And I started going to 12-step recovery groups. And he didn't like that. In fact, my whole family didn't like that. And you would think, wait a minute, Mike is going to make himself better. He's living a healthier life. He's getting himself together. But you'd be surprised. They all came down on me. My brother came down on me, called me all kinds of names. My mother came down on me, and my dad came down on me. And it was because I was a threat. Me living my 12-step recovery lifestyle was a threat to them because they were supporting him in his alcoholism. And I wasn't telling him what to do or what not to do. But just me taking the action to, live the 12-step recovery lifestyle, was offensive and hurtful and intimidating. So what ended up happening, of course, I stuck to my guns because thankfully there was something in me that said, I'm gonna do what I need to do regardless of what anybody thinks, including my family. And later on in life, my father still drank himself to death. Up until the very end, he was still in that mindset. And the last few, months of his life, I would go and spend time with him because he was my father and he was dying. He was dying of cancer. And I would go and spend time with him because I knew I would never see him again. But what ended up happening is we would sit down, how are you? And, we were both glad to see each other, and we would sit down and we would have nothing to say. And we would sit there for 5 or 10 minutes and, adjust ourselves in the chair and not say anything. And then I would get up and say, nice to see you, and I would leave. And he passed away. And I knew that the fact that I stuck to my guns, which meant making myself healthy and happy and going against, his lifestyle and, in his mind, making him look bad, that his soul would remember. And I believe that to this day that I was an example of how to follow your soul and not let fear and the desire to be accepted by the narrative and follow the inaccurate survival mechanisms within our 3D body. I believe that I was an example to him. And so my love and commitment to him went beyond this three-dimensional life because I knew that there was never going to come a time when he and I were going to have that bond that I always wanted. I knew that he would never be able to fully accept where I was and who I was because it intimidated him. But I loved him so much that I didn't need his approval more than I needed to be loving and kind to him. And the most loving, kind thing that I could do for him was to follow my own recovery path, which was completely opposite of how he chose to live his life in that way. So I was actually doing step 9. I was taking direct actions to experience everything I desired without limiting the freedom of others to do the same. And bear in mind, at any point in time, he could have followed my example. And he was free to do whatever he wanted. So there's a couple of ways to look at it, but in terms of, if you look back on your life and look at the ways that you've limited other people's freedoms based on your 3D selfish desires. I gave you a good example. You're in love with somebody, instead of letting them live their life, which is different than yours, you manipulate them. You maybe try and guilt them. You might try and force them. You might try and command them. You might try and appease them. You might try and, who knows what, seduce them. But that's limiting their freedom. And so really check with yourself to see the difference. Anyway, this is something you'll have to figure out for yourself. People ask me this question all the time, but the root of it is, the only thing that you need to do is to determine what your soul truly wants. And the way you know what your soul wants is your soul will tell you. So you'll get a flash of joy. which will tell you. Now, if you do the interdimensional meditations, some of the ones I'm going to be uploading, I can't speak for you, but I will almost every single time get this flash of blissful joy, which will let me know, especially if I'm meditating on something, it'll let me know what it is my soul wants to do. So you'll have to take that journey and find out for yourself. But when you find out what your soul wants and the fear comes up that says, well, I can't do that, that's selfish. Remember, you can never truly do any truly 5D selfish act, which is an act towards your soul that is harmful to anybody else, even if they say they don't like it, even if they disapprove of it. It is not damaging to them for you to be as fully evolved and blissfully happy as possible. And as you know, that is the main goal in my life. The main goal in my life is my absolute, complete, total bliss and fulfillment and happiness. And I want to leave this life, assuming I, end my life the way most humans do, on a deathbed looking back on my life. My goal is to have zero regrets. I don't want to be there going, oh, if I wish I'd done that. Nope. I want to be able to say, yep, I did everything I wanted. And I am happy with this life. And I give you that goal as well. And I'm here to tell you that that is what the universe wants. God, if you will, wants that for you, wants you to experience that. And when you do, the entire universe gives you a standing ovation. You help every single conscious being, including the most powerful gods, when you do something as simple as living your deepest desires. All right? So that's step 9. We sought to take direct actions to experience everything we desired without limiting the freedom of others to do the same. And stay tuned. We'll do step 10 soon. Thank you very much for coming onto the channel. And again, go back, if you haven't actually done the steps, go back and do them starting with step 1. And, if somebody comes in your life and they want what you have, you can share these 12 steps with them. Anyway, we'll talk about that at another time. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. I look forward to seeing you all on the channel very soon. Please take very good care of yourselves.